Right then, United are playing Leeds tomorrow night, and just as we're sitting down to write the preview, to look at how Leeds have been playing this season, man, we got them twice in days. Jesse Marsch gets sacked, and everyone's favourite time of year takes over, Christmas. Supposedly, it looks like it is going to be Christmas that takes over. Chris Armas, that takes over. Really, really difficult to do a preview when you have no idea what he brings to the table. So we can only kind of go off a little bit of how they played previously and how they got into the mess that they're in, and the situational awareness and what I want to see from United, really. So United have lost just one of our last 17 league games against Leeds. We've won 11, drawn 5, and we had a 1-0 away loss in September 2002. Since they returned back to the Premier League in 2020, only City have scored more against Leeds with 16. United have put 15 past them. Leeds are winless in their last 17 away league games against United. They've had 6 draws, 11 losses, and that's all the way back to a 1-0 victory in February 1981, before I was born. I don't think there's much danger of that tomorrow night either. Although, new manager bounce could definitely scrap a draw out of us, but anyway, they are winless in their last 7 Premier League games, which is probably what saw Jesse Marsch get the bullet. And as they're looking forward, seeing that they got to play United twice in quick succession, they was probably like, well, that's not going to get any better, is it? And it could go to 10. We will be without Casemiro for this game, and we have lost 3 of the 4 games in which he hasn't played in all competitions. As many defeats as we suffered in the 30 games that he has played. That's quite worrying, isn't it? So in the 4 games that he's missed, we've lost 3. And in the 30 games he's played, we've also lost 3. Casemiro's pretty important, isn't he? How do they play? Or how did they play, at least, under Jesse Marsch? So to say there's one out-and-out formation for every single minute for Jesse Marsch's Leeds would have been taking a really... Ignorance, one word. Hopeful is another. It just didn't really happen, in all honesty. When trying to identify the preferred system out of the many options he cycled through, I think the most obvious one would be a 4-2-3-1. The shape sort of nicely adapts between phases of games, but it looks a little bit 4-4-2, a little bit 4-2-4, particularly when they're pressing. And I think Chris Armas brings a lot of that. That was what he was meant to be bringing at United, was pressing. So I think that's probably going to stay the same. And Marsch liked the teams to press, and I think that was why Armas was brought in, and press aggressively. And the 4 lead, the way, like we said, in a 4-2-4 sort of formation, if the fullbacks push on, that limits the gaps, increases the compactness, and the shape can even look like a 2-4-4, which is ballsy to press in, but can be quite effective when it comes to making the pitch compact. And the way that they press is to force down the sides, make it difficult to cut through the middle, and they kind of attack narrow, so they quite like that anyway, even if they win the ball in those shapes. You don't have to switch their shape. They build it up with 3 behind the striker, playing narrowly, and the fullbacks provide the width as they go forward. And they have a bit of a strong emphasis on playing vertical on the ground. So they might play football on the ground, but they're trying to look forward at all times with it. They knock it on the floor. It's I say a hangover, but hangover implies negative connotations, and I don't mean it as a negative connotations, but it is a hangover from Bielsa, because it's literally a Bielsa transition. It can be quite gung-ho, but it comes with risks, and those risks are why they've crumbled at the back and why they find themselves hurtling towards the relegation spots. And a predicted 11, probably something along the lines of Meslier, Ayling, Cott, Cooper, Wobber, Adams, McKennie, Sinestra, Aronson, Gonto, and Rutter. Starman, Willie Nonto. I think we looked at him a little bit in the summer as a possible for United. He was one of the ones that we did a scout report on. Another one that moved after we did a scout report on him. And since his Premier League debut, back end of October, he's created more chances, won more fouls, and completed more dribbles in the Premier League than any other Leeds player. He is short, he is stocky, he is powerful. Everything that I liked about him prior to him joining has kind of come true. He is direct, and his stature makes him very difficult to dispossess and get physical with. You have to be careful on the timings against him, because he does seem to have a little bit of deceptive pace about him, so it seems to make people mistime their tackles. He has got unbelievable acceleration. and he's a threat on the transition. You'll need Wan-Bissaka on his A game for that one. In terms of the United 11, I think Fred's becoming a bit more trusted. Certainly a lot more trusted than Scott McTominay in the centre of the park. So I would expect from United, I'm going to call it the usual in the back four: Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, Martinez and Varane. I think Fred alongside Sabitzer, which is quite attacking, but I think you get away with it. Fred alongside Sabitzer, because we know Sabitzer's got a bit of discipline about him. So Fred alongside Sabitzer, not ideal, but it is what it is. With Bruno, and then Anthony, Rashford, and Weghorst down the centre. I could propose a change, which I think actually makes United slightly stronger defensively, and that would be Bruno with Sancho down the middle. But I don't know if Sancho's match fit to start a game just yet. Certainly one with the intensity of Leeds. So I think Sancho will be probably dripped into the team 30 minutes here and there for at least a few more weeks before we see him certainly start a big game anyway. And within this, the match winner, I think, has to be Fred, because we need him to have a big game. He's got to have a disciplined game, which is not something that you usually associate with Fred, is a disciplined game. But he'll need to be on form without Casemiro. And his game is about intensity, and that's going to be essential in this match. He has been brilliant in the cameos, and the sort of passion is exactly what you need when you're coming up against Leeds. It will be a slugfest in the middle of the park, and that's where Fred excels. Ground duels. You can bypass him by sticking it in the air because he's not physically imposing. He's not tall. But when the ball's going into the channels, when the ball's going in and around players, not the number 10, he can get on that and he can win the ball back. And if the game becomes a bit of a press fest, I don't know if that's a word. It's not a word. He excels in that sort of chaos. My worry is, what's the options to settle it back down again? Can we throw Martinez in? Maybe bring Lindelof into defence? Can we go with Luke Shaw at centre-half, push Martinez up, and bring Malacia in at left-back? Those aren't the worst options, I think. If you want a bit of composure in the six, I think Martinez is a go-to. We also saw him try Lindelof there temporarily in weird circumstances. So I think we do have a slight bit more option than we think, but it's not a lot. And how do you beat them? You got the new manager bounce. You've got the new manager sort of lift that the entire club gets. It's a clean slate for every single player there. Those who thought they were fourth or fifth choice in the hierarchy now believe they have a chance to become number one in their position, which means training will have been absolutely carnage today at Leeds, as everyone's trying to impress Mr. Christmas, which means that tomorrow, the first opportunity to impress the new manager, or whoever that new manager is going to be, is a big audition for him. And no better place to do it than at Old Trafford, where United are on this unbelievable run of form at the moment. I'm worried about this now. I wasn't worried about it under Jesse Marsch because I could see the frailties in the way they were playing. If someone else has spotted those and fixes those, it's not about Leeds beating you, because I'm not afraid of them creating enough chances to do that, really. But they could easily frustrate and grab a draw. 0-0, 1-1. They could easily grab us a draw. And when we're pushing for, let's just say we're trying to push as many points as possible and see what happens, a draw is as bad as a defeat, pretty much. So it's all about picking the W's up and just stringing them together and seeing where you are at the end of the season. And I worry about how effective motivated Leeds will be. And I worry Manchester United with the massive games we've got coming up. Barcelona, Newcastle in a cup final. The likes of this game and Leicester can get overlooked a little bit. You've got to try and keep your eye on the ball, because those games mean jack shit if you bollocks up these games, really. So start stringing the wins together, take it one game at a time, and then see where we end up at the end of the season, I reckon. But let me know your thoughts. How do we fix the 6 issue without Casemiro? Would you want to see Martinez in there? We know he's done it temporarily at Ajax. I mean, we did a whole video at the start of the season about whether he was coming to be a 6 or he was coming to be a centre-half, and I actually leant towards him being a 6 because we hadn't signed Casemiro at the time. And then we signed Casemiro and go, oh, okay, what's he going to do with Maguire? He's going to bench him, that's what he's going to do. So I think that Martinez can do it. I think we're maybe a little bit apprehensive because we haven't seen it yet at United. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.